is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some Spider-Man 2 gameplay. And today I'm going to be doing a review on Marvel's latest movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. This is actually the first time I've actually been to a movie theater in over a year. So I had a lot of hope I would enjoy this movie. But as you could probably tell by the thumbnail, unfortunately, I did not have an enjoyable experience. I went with a friend and he loved it, and a lot of people were excited and laughing in the theater, but I was the complete opposite. But why? What was it that didn't resonate with me? Hopefully by the end of this video you guys can at least understand my perspective, as I am aware that a lot of people enjoyed this film and it is making massive, and I mean massive amounts of money. I think it'll be probably over $1 billion by the end of this week. But without further ado, let's get into this review, which I will let you know when I bring up spoilers. So the first part is going to be non-spoilers, and the end part I'll go into spoilers. But without further ado, let's get right into this. First, let's get into what I liked about this film. Obviously, I thought Hugh Jackman looked great in the Wolverine costume. It's always nice to see him reprise his role as Wolverine. And obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine, with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they go together really well. They play their parts pretty solid, and you're not going to hear too many people rap on that. They're definitely great. I enjoyed the whole car segment, but I'm going to go and elaborate on this further later in this video. It was nice to see some characters I haven't seen or have been forgotten since like forever. There's a lot of references and Easter eggs, so be on the lookout. And I did enjoy the team up, as well as, what the actors have been wanting to do for a long time. I know Hugh and Ryan have been wanting to do this team up for a long time. And I'm glad that they finally allowed this to happen. So I'm glad that they eventually got to making this movie. But as you could probably tell, that's the majority of what I did enjoy. So now let's get into the parts that I didn't like. Now, I know before I even say anything, I know someone's going to make a comment like this, that hey, it's a Deadpool movie. What else did you expect? This is par for the course. And while I understand that mindset, and I get it, it still doesn't excuse so many things that did not make my experience that enjoyable. Just because it is a Deadpool movie doesn't mean that it's excused from any type of criticism. Because as I said, I went to this movie, I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to have a good time. I didn't come in this movie in case someone's thinking to hate it. No, I wouldn't spend and waste money. I wanted to enjoy it, but there's just so many things that made it unenjoyable. I think one of the biggest problems with this movie is it's way too long. It didn't need to be over 2 hours, and I thought it felt like 2.5 hours, but it was a little bit over 2 hours. But honestly, I could cut out over a half an hour of just pointless scenes that go nowhere and add nothing but runtime to this movie. I will go into more about these pointless scenes in the spoiler section, but let's move on. The movie just doesn't feel very much like a movie, and feels more like a gimmick or a compilation of cheap pops. The majority of the excitement of this movie is predicated on all the cameos and references for all the previous Fox movies and characters, but even these cameos are so underutilized and used for nothing more than a few seconds of, oh, it's that character from the past, and maybe they get a few lines if you're lucky to, then mattering very little or just simply disappearing or being a complete non-factor for the rest of the movie. I don't mind cameos and references, I was excited to see them, but when your whole movie is predicated on that, it can't be that just alone. And on top of just not using them very properly, but more on that in the spoiler section, the dialogue is terrible. Did a young teenager who just discovered the F word write this? Logan or Wade, for that matter, talk like that constantly all the time. He had to occasionally saying it, but saying it seemingly 24/7, it made them seem less cool and more childish as the movie progressed. Most of the action sequences are just the same thing repeated over and over, with Wade or Logan constantly stabbing or slicing or shooting non-stop people, while themselves get stabbed constantly, but since they both have their healing factor, it completely kills any tension or stakes, on top of making all the fights seem the same, which is pretty lazy and redundant over time. Couldn't get more creative and actually have a challenge? The main villain could have actually done this, but the problem is that they unfortunately never utilized well to actually being taken serious, and more of a combination of being stupid as well as being used as a joke. But remember, it's a Deadpool movie. Speaking of the villains, they're terrible and forgettable. They literally just dare to be exposition dumps or never taken serious at all in any moment of this film. Whenever they talk, I just wait until the next scene completely undermines anything they actually said, as it will be more than likely turned into a joke. Speaking of jokes, I will be perfectly honest with you guys. I don't believe I laughed at one thing during this entire movie. Maybe a chuckle or two, but there was a woman behind me who laughed basically at everything in the theater, and, I'm glad she liked it, but for the love of me, I just couldn't find much humor in this film at all. But before you accuse me, maybe I just don't have a sense of humor, I think the problem is when you have been waterboarded and forced to hear nonstop Deadpool humor and jokes for the last 15 years, whether it be from his previous movies or the comics, you see these kind of jokes coming from a mile away. Nothing caught me off guard or had me in a moment where I genuinely was laughing at the movie. I have seen and heard a lot of the supposed humor multiple times in movies of the past and just done a lot more effectively than this film. And last, the plot. There is no plot. There is no film structure, barely. It is simply an entire film with non-stop cameos, Easter eggs, references, overused jokes, repetitive fight sequences, and ultimately a shallow experience that goes on way too long. Maybe if they trimmed down the runtime, I would have liked it a little bit better, but I couldn't wait until the movie was over. But alas, that's the end of my non-spoiler part. Now I get into the spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, you have been warned, it's your time to click off. Without further ado, let's get into the spoilers. I mentioned earlier that this film is way too long for what it is trying to do and should cut out over a half an hour for this movie. So I'm going to go over the scenes I think should be cut because they offer nothing and go nowhere. First, cut out all the Paradox scenes. Nobody cares about him and what his plans are. Nobody cares about trying to tie the MCU with the Deadpool characters together with the TVA. Whatever they are on screen, it just makes me want to skip on and fast forward to the next sequence as they waste time and no one takes anything they say seriously because everything they say is going to be used into a joke anyway. Next, cut out the wannabe character building moment scenes that I guess are supposed to be emotional but aren't. Like Deadpool not mattering or why this Wolverine is the worst Wolverine is and how he abandoned the X-Men. Like, none of these scenes go anywhere and are barely brought up and mentioned, but considering you are watching a Deadpool movie and it consists of non-stop jokes, cameos, and references, these wannabe emotional sequences feel so out of place with this film. What did the chameleon do to them? Next, cut out all the montage fight scenes, as when you see one, you have seen them all. Only the car fights seem to be generally good and trying to be a little bit creative, but the others are just rehash of what we've already seen in the movie alone. It gets repetitive over time. I think the biggest example of this is when Deadpool Corp shows up. Like, seriously, what was the point of these guys? They serve no purpose other than to extend the runtime of this movie. The fight sequence is just a slow-mo Logan and Deadpool running through and stabbing everyone as they all fall so easily with little to no resistance, only for them to regenerate and come back up. But then Peter Poole comes and gets the corpse to let them pass underground. So what was the point of the scene? It adds nothing. It's boring to watch since I've already seen a bunch of scenes like it in this same movie already. And there's no stakes or even a challenge since everyone can regenerate. The only bad part is it's the one time we see Wolverine wear the mask, which was cool to look at. Now these next scenes may get you guys mad at me. This might be the most pissed off part for you guys, but I'm sorry. I can't stand these sequences, especially when they are done multiple times. They have no purpose, but everyone falls victim to them, except for me, it seems like. It seems like everyone just falls under, I don't know, like they got Geost or something, and they just, like, fall victim to this. But not me. You're not going to get me. But, as they always like to say, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. Get rid of the dog. Yeah, you heard me. Dogpool is a waste of time in this film. I hate how movies and shows do this thing where you have this cute, cuddly character, which I like to call a mascot, since they barely qualify of being a character, but they'll add this mascot to the film, and everyone instantly loves them. They don't have to do anything, have any development, or even say anything, and they are instantly loved no matter what. Think of mascots like Grogu from The Mandalorian, Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy, or Nezuko from Demon Slayer. All they have to do is show up and they're instantly loved. But unlike Dogpool, at least the other characters I mentioned can actually fight and do something. Dogpool does nothing more than run in slow mo to Deadpool multiple times to lick him. That's it. Maybe I could get over one time doing this, but multiple times, hell no, dog. You gotta go until you have more of a purpose and do something. And this is not to say that I'm someone that hates animals. I love animals. You know, I like them more than humans, but Use him effectively. Like, I don't know, would it be too much to have him, I don't know, fight and do something? At least I'd understand him having a purpose than what he did. Now let's get into the cameos. The problem I have with a lot of them outside the initial few seconds of seeing them do nothing, or just the fact that they're just there to be there. This movie uses the hidden characters poorly, and it seems like they're only there just to be the brunt of a joke or two before being killed and forgotten. They have this whole sequence where you meet Jennifer Gardner Elektra, Wesley Snipes Blade, Channing Tatum Gambit, yeah you heard that, and Daphne Keane X-23. But after their initial introduction, I can't remember anything they did after that. They don't use them hardly at all, and they're just simply there to be there. Hell, some of them barely even talk. I don't really remember Elektra saying much, and Laura barely says anything. I like how they try to have this one scene where Laura tries to talk and have a heart-to-heart with Logan, but remember, you're watching a Deadpool movie, so none of this hits, and it just feels ultimately pointless. Night and day compared to the chemistry they had in Logan. Once you get past the sequences where Blade, Elektra, Gambit, and X-23 fight with Logan and Deadpool in a generic team fight sequence, they are basically forgotten for the rest of the film. Well, I guess not X-23 since he joins Wolverine with all the Deadpool friends at the end of the movie, so I guess that's good, I guess. There are other cameos than the ones I mentioned, but those are the ones that I guess are supposed to matter the most, I guess other than Chris Evans' Human Torch making an ass of himself. My problem with these cameos is that it is done in the wrong way to do nostalgia. None of these characters are used effectively and are just there to be a gimmick or a cheap pop. For comparison, I remember when people thought Spider-Man No Way Home was too much nostalgia, but the difference between that and this film is night and day. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were not brought in just to be thrown away in an introduction for a cheap pop and a few jokes then discarded for the rest of the film. The roles mattered in the film, and they were really important, as well as added not just for some humor, but character progression as well as some heartfelt moments. And there were stakes in that movie. I mean, Spider-Man lost his Aunt May and everyone forgot who he was by the end of this film. Hell, even the villains were used effective and had an actual purpose in this movie as well as some heartfelt moments. I love that moment between Doc Ock and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man finally having another conversation with each other, which hit really effectively. But unfortunately, none of the stakes matter in this movie because no one cares. Even if the whole Fox Deadpool Wolverine universe is disappearing, no one cares because it's a Deadpool movie. With its villains, it just makes them uninteresting in Deadpool and generic to the point that every time they spoke, it just seems like a waste of time. I believe Cassandra Nova could have been used more effectively, but you won't find it in this movie since everything is a joke. Oh, by the way, I will say that her doing the whole fingers into the guy's face, that was kind of creepy. But other than that, everything is a joke. When everything is a joke, nothing is a joke. There needs to be a balance. I expect Deadpool movies to be heavy on humor, but not everything can be humor. I believe Guardians of the Galaxy does this really well in terms of balancing humor and heartfelt moments. You can laugh and get emotional in that movie. You can't do this in Deadpool. But I know what you're going to say. It's a Deadpool movie. What did you expect? If that is the case, why even waste time having these pointless wannabe emotional sequences that go nowhere? Because when I'm watching Logan relive his past, or Deadpool thinking how he can matter and do something with his life, hell, I think the best example from this movie is when Logan and Wave are in the car and Logan just goes in deep and rips Deadpool verbally. I like this moment. It's one of the few heartfelt moments that I really felt something in the entire film, and I think it's done really well. After Logan's done talking, everyone's like, damn, like, you know, what can really Deadpool say after that? But you know what happened after he was done talking? The same thing that happened with all the other moments I mentioned. What was all on your minds as you waited for it to happen? The punchline, the joke, the big psych. Because this is a Deadpool movie, and nothing can never be nothing more than a sick joke, kind of like as Logan said it himself. My point? Why even have these in the first place if you're never going to commit to them in the first place? Deadpool and Wolverine are just beating each other up again, completely killing anything from before, making this whole scene completely pointless. Now, I get to my final point in all this. If you are a fan of this movie, I know the majority probably are, and I get why you guys like this movie. I really do. It's not hard to understand why. However, I hope this kind of movie is just a one movie thing and never done again, because I do not want Marvel to learn all the wrong lessons from this film, but since it is making boatloads of money, I fear they might. To me, this is just a glorified compilation of non-stop cameos Easter eggs, references amped up on steroids, combined with an over 2-hour runtime. Nothing I found remotely funny, with overused humor, repetitive and boring fight scenes, forgettable villains, terrible dialogue, and just poorly used nostalgia, and plot or stakes not worth a damn. I'm sorry if I sound really negative, but I just expected more from this. I mean, this was an over $300 million budget movie, and this is the best they could do. I'm happy that Ryan and Hugh were able to do this film. I really am. I just feel like it should have been so much better and cooler. Honestly, I hate to say this, I feel like you guys got gypped off. I mean, I'm glad people liked it. I'm not going to insult people for liking it either. You know, you like what you like, you don't like what you don't like, and I respect that. It's just that I feel like this whole movie, the bad part is it makes both Deadpool and Wolverine look really bad and hurts their image. But, as I always like to say though, that is my opinion. I'd like to hear your guys' opinion. What did you guys think about Deadpool and Wolverine? Did you love the movie, or did it not click with you? Let me know down below in the comment section. But, thank you so much for watching the video. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and hopefully I can see you guys back on my next video. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.